Okay, we're back today. My name is Natalie Van Dyken. I am a student in leadership and ministry with Dr. Hayes. And today I am privileged to get to do our interview with my senior pastor, Pastor Reg Lloyd. Thank you for being here with me. So I know your history a little bit better, but they obviously don't know anything about you. So just talk to me a little bit about how you started in your leadership role.
Yeah. All right. So I grew up in church, and my parents were pastors. Therefore, I did not want to be a pastor, and I promised I'd never be one. But I had some scholarships to a seminary. I went to a seminary for 1 month, but then came back to our local community college after a month and enrolled in a physical therapy program. It was the first time that my parents were away, so I was attending church by myself because I wanted to. Felt like a big boy, carrying my Bible, giving money in the offering for the first time. And I started volunteering with the youth ministry at 19 and a homeless ministry. At the same time, my dad was in between churches, was asked to fill in for our church here in Beaumont. He did. They asked him back the next Sunday. He did. Eventually, they asked him to stay.
Right.
And so he took a church of about 15 to 20 people, and he called my sister and I, which were at the church down the road, volunteering, and asked if we wanted to be student pastors or leaders, start a youth group. Well, I thought with 15 to 20 people in the church, I couldn't hurt much. And at 19 years old, I was still a youth. So we came over and started January 1990 with 7 youth. And,
oh my gosh.
That was my start in really having a formal leadership role.
Okay, 19. Now looking back at 19, it's like, oh my gosh, how in the world, you know?
How did a church put a 19-year-old
right.
single guy?
Yeah. True story.
Yeah.
True. Okay, so how do you define success?
Success is knowing your purpose and fulfilling that purpose. I don't know that I could, for myself, distill it anymore. The challenge is knowing what that purpose is or having clarity of it.
Yeah.
Not that you have to, it can be pretty general to start with. As you get older, I think that ought to narrow down.
Yeah.
Because I think age just gives you wisdom, but age also gives you experience. As you look at other people and you see what's really impacting.
Yeah.
Doing so many funerals as a pastor, you get to do many funerals. And you really see at the end of life what people really talk about.
Yeah.
What do they really say about you? And that was a turning point now in my life. So at 18, 19, I had a friend in a motorcycle accident, and he passed away. I remember all of us coming back. We all graduated. This little country farmer's funeral home in Silsbee, a little country funeral home. We were standing outside that funeral home, and everybody was just talking about, oh, this is what Jeff did, and here's what we did together. And for one moment, I just thought, if this was me, what would they be saying about me? I don't know why I thought that. And the same thing happened inside during the service, where the pastor was speaking, and I thought, if that was me in that casket, what would he be saying? Because at that moment, everything's done.
Yeah.
You cannot do. You have no more do-overs. And so that was a big turning point at 19 years old, just to start thinking, as Stephen Covey says, with the end in mind.
That's good. This is going to be a fun interview. I'm excited. All right. What are 1 or 2 of the top leadership principles that you have discovered and executed that have contributed to your success in leadership?
Yeah, I think trust is number one. And we talk about that here at Praise. That's why it's one of the key values at Praise. Because without trust, no one's going to follow you.
Yeah.
I often thought about that. Why do I follow some people? Why do I don't follow others? Why do I listen to what they have to say, take more notes, more attentive when they talk? It's because when they have credibility and I know that they live or have integrity, I'm much more likely to want to hear them and to replicate what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I wondered, where is it where trust is broken? Because I saw some leaders who broke trust, and then people quit following them. I quit following people because they broke trust. Not that I didn't like them anymore.
Yeah.
Just I didn't think they could take me to where I wanted to go. Therefore, why would I would allow them to leave me?
Yeah.
So the question became for me to find out why or where at in this continuum do you go from being fully trusting somebody and then there's a moment that you don't trust them. What has to happen? And I thought, it's like if someone was going to come over my house and repair my refrigerator. They said, I'll be there at noon on Monday. Can you be there? Absolutely, I'll be there. I go there, I wait, 30 minutes comes into it, I call and say, I thought you were going to be here at 12. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't call you, I got sick. I'm probably going to say, okay, I understand. They say, how about tomorrow? Tomorrow at 12:30? Sure. Well, I show up on Tuesday, take off work, go there. 12:30, they don't show up. Then I call them, hey, I thought you were coming out. He's got so busy at the office. How about tomorrow? Will you be there? Now, I'm starting to doubt because my expectation of them is that they're not going to fulfill their promise. And I noticed that when exceptions in people's life became my expectation, my trust was broken. So if someone would come into a meeting late, 1, 2 times, hey, caught a light, whatever. I said, oh, we all do that. That's an exception. But then after they do it repeatedly for a year or so, then it becomes the expectation that when they come in late, it doesn't surprise me. My trust is broken. When the exception becomes my expectation, my trust is gone. So the key, I think the strongest element of leadership is to be able to keep trust. Doesn't mean to be perfect, because I've made lots of mistakes and still have kept trust because I owned up to the mistakes and was willing to go to that person and say, I blew it. I'm so sorry. In fact, I think I gained more trust because they knew that I would own up to my mistakes. The second is just having clear vision. Because that was, I started out with clear vision for the organization, but probably within the past 2 years had to re-up that because as the church got bigger, more people could go different ways. And so it creates sideways energy and lots of resources going in opposite directions, where if all resources could go in a single direction, and I was the one to champion the vision, and I wasn't. So I had to go back and say, here's who we are, here's what we do, so that we could say yes to budget, yes to staffing. And just imagine, if you're a leader, you have an end goal, a purpose. If everything you do can align with getting there, the momentum is like a creek that has more momentum going. The force is going to be greater, more likelihood of getting to that. So I think the 2 top characteristics for me would be trust and having a vision.
That's so good. That's so good. Okay. What would you say has been your greatest accomplishment thus far?
That's so tough. I think for me, creating an environment, a church environment, where people who have been hurt by church, or they never had faith in church or God, felt comfortable to at least pursue God again.
Yeah.
That, again, I was sitting, that comes from a story. I was sitting in a balcony of a very large church, probably 6,000 people, and a guy was speaking at a conference. He had been a former atheist, and he gave his story about how he came into this church and how he went from faithless to being full of faith. Well, the pastor came up afterwards and said, these are the stories that we love to hear. 2/3 of our church, a very large church, mega church in the United States, 2/3 of our church was not transferred right. They all came in from not having faith or being hurt by church, and that's what our church consists of. And in the balcony, I said, that's the type of church I want to be a part of. Not one that transfers growth or swaps fish. They're already saved. They've got a place. But for the people who've been hurt by church, lost trust in God or faith in God, I thought, man, if we could just create a place. And that was a very long time ago. And I think that we have created. I think we have created a place, not a perfect place. We don't have everything down, but I think we've created a place where people like that can come in. Yeah. I mean, in fact, that's what our church consists of right now.
That's who we were. I mean, Isaac and I were those people. And we literally came to pray saying, God, this is the last one. This is the last place we're going. So please make it where you want us to be at. And then we can call this our home.
Mm-hmm.
And now look now. I wouldn't be
You're on
anywhere
staff.
else.
Now you're on staff doing it for other people.
It's so good. Okay. What has been your greatest challenge as a leader?
I'm not a micromanager.
Mm.
I don't like to get in people's business. I always looked at it as kind of being insulting to people, because if I had to come in and give details about how someone's to do a job, then I was almost saying, in my mind, I was almost saying that they didn't have the ability to do that.
Mm.
And my greatest challenge is, even to this day, is to pull someone in the office and just say, even before a task is given or delegated, spell out exactly what I want.
Mm.
Because I don't know, I guess I kind of assume that I'm taking a parent-child relationship,
Yeah.
where I want them to be able to do that, or after something has been train wrecked, to pull them in. I want to give benefit of the doubt. I want to give them another chance. Because I really don't like feeling like I'm elevating myself above somebody else, that I'm better. I'm not any better. But in a leadership role, you have to do that, because before a task is delegated, if you don't paint the picture, then you are almost setting that up not to meet your expectations, because not everybody has the same picture in their mind.
Right.
And I think I'm getting better at it. But I also feel like my track record of someone that's not, people know that I'm not coming after them, has helped me as well.
Yeah.
That they'll give me the right to have those conversations. But early on, it had to be that. I did not want to micromanage, but I probably could have steered the organization closer to the vision if I would have gotten in there. And made a few bad hires along the way.
Okay.
Just didn't vet enough.
Yeah.
That was young. That was young leadership, inexperience.
Okay. Lessons learned. Okay.
Yeah. Let me add to that. So when the church started to grow, we would hire to the level that we were at, not the level that we were going. And so we didn't think in 2 years we're going to need someone at this level, because we were at this level. And I hired someone that could handle a certain group up to a certain quantity, but beyond that, they had to start working through leaders, and they didn't have the leadership capability to develop leadership, or to reproduce themselves.
Yes.
And so those were some of those were some of the stumbling blocks that I had early on.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let me see. Can you pinpoint a defining moment in your leadership? Something that was defining, and how did it define you as a person?
Defining moment was in the balcony at that conference when I heard a mission and a vision that really reached people who are far from God. That was a defining moment. Reading the book, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, was a defining moment. I was single. I was about 20, 21 years old. I would take that book to the lake by myself, camp out overnight around the campfire, and read it and hash out a mission statement. And I hashed out a mission statement that, to this day, that's 30 years, is still my mission statement. And it's just simply to exhaust every resource I have, time, money, ideas, for the glory of God. And it's spelt out, and it's bullet pointed. It's a lot more detailed than that. But that was a defining moment. Walking with my dad at 6 months during his death. Pancreatic cancer diagnosis, 6 months to his death. Watching that process and go from 180 pounds to 130 pounds, and being there when he passed away and having those last conversations made me realize the finality. Here we go.
Listen. Okay.
The finality of life.
Yes.
Not just in sadness for him, because I know the great hope we have,
Yes.
but just in the reality that one day, I felt like one day I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be close to breathing my last breath. What is it that I want to have accomplished by then? Those are defining moments. Every funeral I do is a defining moment because at the end, I don't know if you know this, but pastors stay in after everybody's dismissed. Pastors stay in with the family, and I watch them say their very last goodbye before they shut the casket for the last time. And it's sad watching all the conversations and thank you so much and I love you, Dad, or honey, or whatever it is. There's no way that I can stand there without thinking what my kids are going to say to me.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that Cubby talked about in 7 Habits is that picture yourself at a funeral and you're sitting on the front row and they start the funeral, but then your daughter gets up or your son gets up or your wife gets up or your coworkers get up and you realize it's your funeral. What do you want them to say about you? And so, okay, so live a life so that they'll say it.
Yeah.
And those are, they're not like grand. I mean, these are just life moments that when you look and study life, and you can be an observer of that, the wise will learn from that and try to make those differences, try to adjust.
Wow. Okay, I'm not going to cry through this whole conversation. All right.
I'll do that for you.
How do you handle criticism?
So at first it's tough, but I think I have learned to try to be objective about it. So honestly, if it's criticism that I feel like is, oh man, this is tough, right? If it's people who know me, it's harder. If it's people who don't know me, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because they don't know.
Yeah.
And some people just criticize. That's just what they do. It doesn't matter. They would be at a concert, they'd criticize. They'd be at a restaurant, they'd write a review. So there's some people that's always going to do that. Those types don't bother me. It's I think people who are closest to me who didn't take time to ask me the questions of why. But sometimes it's those people that are closest to me that do ask those questions and they still give me some good criticism. I've had that several from staffers within the past year or two that talked about some things that I could improve on. And it was the manner in which that came to me was full of humility. And I was like, I'm a better leader right now because they took time. There's some blind spots. So it stings, depending on who it comes from. It initially stings. After emotions settle down, try to be objective about it. And at least if there's a little bit of it that's true, that I think that would be true, and I try to change.
Okay. How do you keep your family priority number one?
All right, so these are often, I feel like I'm quoting so many books, but I think a leader learns all the time. And so I read a lot more books in my early years of leadership, and I'm glad that I'm able to now. But in reading a book by Andy Stanley said, Choosing to Cheat, his premise is life is too busy, something's going to be cheated, don't cheat your family. And he said, so learn to set boundaries, like at what time you're going to leave work, stick to that. And so I've been able to do that, I don't know, a long time, ever since I've had children. My dad was a pastor. I felt like he managed church, which would be his career, and family well. And I never thought of him as pastor. I was able to call him dad. And I know some dads aren't seen as that. They're seen as more like the pastor to their kids. I don't want that because I want my kids to love the church. And I don't want them to see the church as competition for time with them. So there are days that are set aside for my family. 5 o'clock, I'm gone. I'm out of here. Now, my family knows there's seasons in ministry, funerals, weddings, emergencies, those types of things. So they understand that, but we still manage that well. But 5 o'clock, I'm gone. I envision on my way home how I want to enter the house. It's like if you could go back and you could put yourself as a little kid and your dad came in the door from work, how would you want him to respond to you? What would have shown you that he was crazy about you? So each one of my children are different in the way that I'll approach them after work, but I want to make sure that before going home, I want to envision how I want to enter in the home. So one's just touch, wife can be maybe a hug, the other one maybe flying, we call it flying squirrel, Remy a run, throw her in the air, and then the other one's just a big hug, and the other one's kind of a tickle. So it's just ways that you know what works with or what communicates love to your family. Set times of leaving. If I'm over 10 minutes late, so I'll get home about 5:20, 5:30. If I'm 10 minutes late, if it's past that, I will text my wife because I want to keep trust high. I want her to know, stuck in traffic or I got called a little later for work. But most of the time, we'll always sit down together for a meal almost every single day. There are certain days of the week that Friday, I'll be with Remy. We'll be at Chick-fil-A. We'll both get a cookies and cream milkshake. These are some traditions. We're driving now with Ambry. I've been teaching her how to drive, so we've been going out each night and driving kind of late at night, but it's always a stop at Starbucks. So it's kind of like knowing what their thing is and enjoying that. Saturdays, family. Fridays and Saturdays are completely family. And it's learning to say no to engagements. I've probably said no to more things within this past year. Just saying I'm busy. Yeah. I'm not having to say anything else other than I'm booked, I'm busy, and I am. I'm booked with my family. Yeah. And if you don't book your family, then something will edge in you. Yeah, for sure. So I don't want to cheat my family.
I can see that. I'm working on that one. All right. How do you continually deepen your personal relationships with your staff, your peers, and other people who follow you?
Yeah, so the staff has grown. We have 22, 23 staffers now. So it's impossible to have that many relationships, deep relationships. Yeah. So that's when we started with a tier structure because I still wanted to pour myself whatever I could into a group of people, but it couldn't be that many and be substantial and be deep. So I think my greatest contribution to this church is that I developed strong relationships with the lead staff. Yeah. And then those relationships will then go down. And then those relationships go down. And that's a way to keep the vision fresh. I just think everything starts at the top. If the top's not right, nothing's going to be right. So you got to do it right. So I want to say, who are the key influencers in our church? Who's the biggest influencers in the church? And I want to influence them as much as I can. And they influence me. They influence me as well. But it's things like that. So I have, again, it's set calendar lunches with these people. And not all lead staff. But like Monday it's on the calendar. Every Monday I'll be with Scott, executive director, executive pastor. I meet every Thursday with Jimmy, every Thursday with Tammy. And those are three that I have to have direct communication, weekly communication with, because that's the main channels in which things go down as far as finances, future of the church, and with planning or the executive leadership with Scott there. So I think you have to get it on the calendar. Those relationships and deepening those relationships, that could be a little sterile too. That may not be developing friendship, but I think just on the interaction, I try to have an open door in the afternoons. My mornings, I'm off site where I'm just very focused for about 3 to 4 hours of work every morning. But at 1 o'clock, I'll be in this office. That door will be open, and everybody knows that they're welcome to come in and sit down and chat or whatever. I just try to make that accessibility available for people, and I do try to walk around and talk to everybody. That's really not a deep relationship, but at least it lets everybody know that I'm here. Yeah. I'm asking about family or just cutting up, having doing jokes or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Describe the role that God plays in your life and leadership.
Yeah, you don't have to lead long. Understand that if you don't let God in, you're going to blow things up. I don't know how people can't be humble. I really can't. It blows my mind unless they're so enamored with themselves. I just can't even see how that is. Because I, if you know yourself, you're going to invite help in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it's not so much by behavior, but some of the thoughts I have sometimes. I'll let my wife and I get in an argument or have a disagreement, or my kids do something that bugs me. The thoughts that I might have, not terrible, not like lock you out of the house or leave you. Just like thoughts of how I'm just going to ignore you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to leave. I'm going to go in the garage and act like I'm doing something just to get away with you. And I think, why do I think that stuff?
Yeah.
I also know that if you don't guard the heart, bad things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's my observation with watching people. I'm not too good to have a moral failure. I'm not too good to get a divorce. I'm not too good to yell at my kids if I don't guard my heart.
Yeah.
Because nothing started big when people had whatever their failures were. It all started small,
Yeah.
and it was never stopped. So I like to think of it like this. And I had this thought, this realization when I slept in another room from my wife for a night because I was angry at her. And I thought, man, what's the next progression from this?
Mm.
So it's all stuff if you don't guard your heart. So say, have I ever had an argument with my wife where I left and just went on an angry ride? Just turn on the music just to get away. Well, yeah. So what was the next step from that? Have I ever left for 3 to 4 hours, 5 hours? Yes. Have I ever slept in another room because I was angry? Yes. Then I started thinking, what's after that? And then what's after that? And what's after that? So it's like, I don't know how people who don't know themselves can't invite God in. Because it's like every day. So we are so dependent, and so I'm so dependent, and I need God so desperately every single day because I don't want to hurt the people I love.
Right.
I don't want to break trust of people who's already had trust broken in a church. And if I don't guard my heart, and little things in it, it's all the little thoughts, that's not caught. But if we can learn to say, why did I think that? Why am I feeling offended? Why am I criticize? Why am I feeling offended on that? Why am I getting angry right now? I think it all points back to some kind of deficit that I might have within, which are like flashlights to invite God in and say, I always say, God, I'm so sorry I'm like this. I need you. This is so, not like he didn't know that. We're broken.
Yeah.
And so it's just having the humility to understand your own weakness, and that if those weaknesses aren't, you don't want to guard around those weaknesses, those things can grow. All step things to something that you would never want to become.
Yeah.
We all know people who've done some things that we heard they did it. We're like, no way. Never in their wildest dreams did they think 10 years before that they'd be there.
Yeah.
It all started small. It just wasn't guarded. So, my weaknesses, my tendencies, my temptations, they are just incredible moments for me to know. Blessed are the poor in spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And when you realize you're bankrupt on your own, you're at a really good place. So just invite God in.
That's so good. That's why I'm here, because whenever this whole process started with me even considering coming on staff, I was broken. I cried for a week, Lord, I'm not good enough to do that. And I knew that I had to surrender every day and say, okay, I'm just surrendering this to you today. Make me the best I can be, no matter if it's praise kids, or a mom, or a teacher, wife, whatever. Make me the best I can be for you today. And I just surrender my heart, my mind, my intentions, all of that to you. And if that means that I go forward with this, then it's because you open the doors. And I don't know how I'm here right now. Okay. Okay, I'm interested on this one. What questions are you asking yourself lately?
Questions I'm asking myself. So, I guess specifically towards leadership,
Just
individually,
where you're at in your
character-wise.
life. Where you're at right now.
Yeah,
Just in life.
I'm trying to figure out. I'm 50. I'm trying to figure out the best way to replicate or to grow an organization without losing as small of a feel as you can. And I'm trying to build platforms from this point on, the rest of my life, however long I get to be a leader. I'm trying to build platforms for other people to stand on. Again, initiated by a book, The Hero Maker, is that a leader will have greater influence if they can build platforms for other people. So I could go the rest of my life doing what I'm doing, or I could raise up or invest, pour myself into whatever, into 15 other people.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a greater impact by investing in 15 people who will invest in 15 people or something like that, like the domino effect.
Yeah.
So my question that I'm asking myself is, how do you do that? How much time do you need to spend? How do you recognize high potential leaders who have the ability to do, I guess, higher level leadership, who have higher level trust? So what I'm talking about is planting churches. So how do you discover another pastor within your ranks, not having to outsource?
Yeah.
How do you replicate a staff of 10 people? Like if you're going to plant a church, to go over, maybe we could send out 300 people from our church. Well, we would send out a staff as well. So who's those people? If that's 5 years down the road, 4 years down the road, how do you identify them now? What's the process from now to then? Those are the questions. In fact, I met with an individual yesterday just asking those questions. Do you ever feel a call of God in your life? This is what I see. I see this. Have you ever thought about, would you be willing for us to start meeting and just kind of examine, or see how this would play out? I think that as far as an organization, how do I replicate leaders and trusting leaders? Because they're going to be in positions where people are going to automatically feel like if I put them in a position, people expect me to vet them out before I put them in that position. And how do you do that? Mm-hmm. How do you see skeletons in the closet and help them work towards those skeletons? So it's a bit daunting, especially when you start putting trust in other people, because it's like, how can you really know somebody when you put them in a position of, especially a church environment? You gotta have trust. Yeah. And that's more of a character issue. So it takes time to determine or to be able to see character. Mm-hmm. You see them in stressful situations and how they're responding, or when people criticize them, not just in success. That's probably the key question I'm asking you. I'm also asking how to communicate better. I'm trying to learn to be a better communicator of information from a public speaking perspective. I think that's one area that's constantly can be improved. But as a pastor, it's not just communicating, but it's what am I to communicate? You have 52 weeks of the year to speak on a lot of stuff, on a big book, but what needs to be spoken? What's the most impactful? Yeah. Those are some of the questions.
That's good. Okay. How do you respond to the idea that it's sometimes lonely at the top?
I think it's only as lonely as you make it. It's only as lonely as the parameters that you've set around yourself. Lonely at the top. When I hear that, I think what I hear from people is that they don't feel like they can be honest. It's not that they don't have people surrounding them, because when you're at the top, you're surrounded all the time. it's not hard to get people to go out. It's you can have lots of friends. Let's say friends. So they're lonely not because there's not people around them, but I would this is just my idea. I would suspect that they're saying, I can't be vulnerable with a lot of people. I can't really be close with a lot of people because if they know me, then they're not gonna. I'm not. My character's not up to this level of leadership. So, if they are lonely, either they have shut people out from getting into their life, being honest and transparent. They've done it themselves because people want to be around leaders.
Yeah. Okay. This is my last question. How do you think, do you think about your legacy and what you want to leave behind someday? And if so, what kind of legacy do you want to leave?
Absolutely. Driven by that. Driven by death. I don't tell many people this. I told a few, actually was going to do a sermon series on it, and it was recommended that I'm not. And so it's not more, it may be a morbid thought, but I don't see how death can't be a motivator because it really is our finality. I'm just driven by every time I see we are surrounded by death, whether people close to us or just in our world, but yet we just don't consider the one day that will be us. So a week and a day ago, I was called to one of my friends' bedside at St. Elizabeth and sat and looked in the eyes of a man that at that time I didn't know, but he only had like 6 more days to live on this earth. Now he knew he was dying, we just didn't know how soon. So me and a couple of my family members went, we spent an hour. He hadn't spoken in 2 days, and when we went in, he spoke for an hour. And we just relived old times. And but the whole time I'm thinking, this is really weird. Because it won't be that long until I'm never going to be able to communicate with you again. And his daughter and son and wife was next to us, and you're never going to communicate with them again until they were in heaven. I think this is just really weird to me. You can be here one moment, in a split second, just laying there, cold, gone. That, I don't know, deadlines or motivators. It's kind of like a deadline. It's done. You're done. It's over. And you begin with the end in mind, that at the end of your life, what do you want to have accomplished? What it does, it tells you what to say yes to, what to say no to, what to stress over, what to get mad over, what to cry over, what to get angry over. So it's like if you have this mindset, I'm going to make a difference. I'm going for it. Yeah. If it's in my heart, God's put it there, and I'm going to go for it. And you're starting to love people because you want that to be your legacy. When you walk into frivolous conversations or frivolous arguments, you're just going to start thinking, why are we arguing about this? Mm-hmm. Why are we wasting valuable time? Can we just get over this? Because you have clarity about what you want your life to be about. My end, walking that with my dad, for 6 months, I saw that. I saw the demise. And I walked away sad, but I walked away motivated in a weird sense of the term. In that, it just showed me it's going to be me. And we know that death rate's still 100%, and we still don't get it. Yeah. But if we were, it's not being driven in a dark sense or a scared sense, but be driven in a way to go, while I'm here, I'm going to make a difference. Yeah. And I'm going to go for it. And if I fail, so what? We're going to learn from it and get up and go again. That's where, when you have that leadership vision about your own personal life, your own organization, or whatever you lead, it's like you look at that, you're like, why I'm here, I'm going to make this vision as much a reality as I can, whatever it takes. So that's just a strong motivator for me.
That's so awesome. The legacy aspect has been really interesting to me because, like, for my dad got emotional at 63 years old.
Oh, yeah. Right.
When I asked him that question.
Right.
And Pastor Jimmy, of course, he thinks about legacy, but he thinks about kind of like what you're talking about, multiplying himself and being a person that people say, look at all the people he influenced and the impact that he had on other leaders. And so it's interesting to hear your thoughts on that. And I agree. I think that we all should be looking back over our life and legacy and be like, this is what God gave me to do, and I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do the best I can because I'm going to stand before him one day and say, I want to hear him say, well done, good and faithful servant to me. And in my kids' ministry opportunity, that I did everything I could to set a strong foundation for every kid who came through Praise Kids, and that I poured into leaders who took that on as them for themselves and multiplied that, and they made that influence, and so I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. This has been fun.